tuned in to the Andrew Lawton Show.
Raheel, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Andrew. It's my pleasure.
Now, this was obviously a horrific story. We've seen people around the country, around the world, that have rallied in support of this family. As a Muslim woman, a Pakistani Canadian, how did you feel when you heard about this?
It's devastating, so very tragic. But Andrew, not just as a Muslim, but as a human being, the fact that 4 members of a family were killed in this attack, and the 9-year-old boy was seriously injured, it breaks my heart. My grandson is about the same age, and I think about this young boy's future, and I wonder, will he grow up just distrusting people? Will he grow up thinking that there's evil and violence around him? The good news is that he is out of danger, and I believe I read that his aunt and uncle are going to adopt him, which of course is a good thing. But, it's heartrending. It's heartbreaking. As a mother, as a grandmother, I can't stop thinking about the family and what the extended family must be going through.
Indeed. And, everyone who knows this family said they were tremendous people, very integrated in their Muslim community and also in the London community where I live. And when so many people rallied behind and have donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to support the boy's future, not that any amount of money can undo it, but there's been a level of support for this family. And when the community had a vigil this week, I was hoping that there would be just a moment to respect and honor this loss. And I was very unsettled at what seemed to be a very quick politicization of what you rightfully characterize as being a tragedy and as being an act of evil.
Yes. So this is where it is so troubling and so disturbing, because the aftermath of the tragedy, when things are supposed to be settling down, is even, tragic and sort of so dismal in so many ways, because politicians are already milking it to the fullest, and community leaders, they hold all the aces now. And nothing can be said, because if anyone says anything, they're going to be slapped with a racism label. And, it brings me back to M103. When Motion 103 was first introduced, I had spoken in Parliament against it, saying, and I had written an op-ed saying that it will divide Canadians. And this is exactly what I see happening, that, it's only going to create a rift. And there are people, community leaders, who are just promoting their own agendas. I read that at the vigil, one of the leaders, Muslim leaders of the community, connected what happened in Israel and Gaza to what has happened in London, Ontario. I mean, that is so unacceptable. That is so horrific. And then I heard on Haqiqat TV from Pakistan, where there was a whole news item about this tragedy. And, I am originally from Pakistan, so I understand the language. And there was a whole news item about the London tragedy in which they said that this is a Jewish conspiracy and it's going to happen all around the world. That was bad enough, but there are people here, community leaders, who are retweeting that. So this is something that has gone out into the public. I mean, what does this make Canadians feel?
Yes, and it turns people into political cudgels and political weapons. And to your point about M103, I've had directed at me because I spoke out against M103, as did you, as did countless of our colleagues. And I've had people put the blame at those who spoke out against M103, even conservative politicians who spoke up this week in a very candid and a very, I'd say, moving way, were said, well, your thoughts don't matter because you voted against M103. And I'm sorry to be so crass, M103 passed and this still happened. So the idea that motion prevents hatred, as police have said was at the root of this, is simply not true. But it is used for political division. You're right.
Yes. I mean, this tragedy that happened was an immense tragedy. But the fact that it is being politicized, and the fact that there are people who are using it to promote their own agendas, and everyone is finding some way to promote their agenda, is absolutely unacceptable. In this country, this is a free country, people should be allowed to express their opinions and criticize. I've always said this. So M103 has not stopped any hate. Hate is a learned behavior. I think what has happened with this tragedy is that it's given, first of all, it's shocked Canadians that it's happened in our country. And secondly, I think it is time to reflect and see where we've come. And what do we need to do about the hate? Because obviously it's being taught. So we need to go to the root cause of where the hate is being taught. There need to be educational programs. I mean, the Prime Minister very confidently says that, there is systemic racism in Canada. And of course, the community leaders grab this as an opportunity to milk the issue. But there are going to be now laws clamping down on free speech and censorship when that is not the solution, but part of the problem. When you stifle free speech in a free country, it creates problems. Free speech is important. Yes, of course, we have to speak out against xenophobia and bigotry. And, there have been attacks on Asians in BC, and the LGBT community is constantly under attack. And of course, these have to be addressed. This is not to say that there is no racism. Of course there is, but we have to directly address that. But to stifle free speech and to have censorship and to have laws that don't allow people to critique something that is terribly wrong is even worse, because that causes problems.
It does. And at this vigil, one individual spoke up and said, one of the official speakers, and said we need to, his words were, criminalize Islamophobia. Another, who's actually a lawyer, said you can't hide behind the Constitution, and freedom of expression doesn't matter if a family doesn't have the right to walk down the street. But I'm very uncomfortable with that dichotomy, that safety and community are exclusive of freedom of expression and vice versa. But when that's the narrative that's being put forward, how do you break through? And how do you say, yes, I want to condemn bigotry and condemn hatred, but no, free speech abridgments and infringements are not the way to do that?
That's exactly what we have to say. Andrew, you know that I come from Pakistan. I've seen myself what happens when free speech is stifled, when freedom of expression is stifled. And once it is done, you can never go back to being the same again. And I don't want to see this happening in Canada. I am quite open to the idea that someone wants to criticize me, wants to criticize my faith. That is okay. Everyone has a right to do that. But this stifling of free speech is going to create more problems. I am fearful of what the aftermath of this tragedy is going to be in terms of misuse of the situation, in terms of people politicizing it instead of just having compassion. All that family needs right now is compassion. They don't need it to be politicized. But of course, it is being. We have elections coming up. Let's not forget. So every politician has a vested interest in promoting their agenda to get votes. But that's not the way I feel this should happen. There has to be a human element. There has to be a sensible, reasonable, logical element that says exactly as you said, that, we must speak out against any kind of racism, xenophobia, bigotry. But we should have the free speech available to us. I mean, this is what immigrants like me came to Canada for. And it's very sad to see it go down the deep, dark hole.
Well, that's a tremendously important point, and I do not at all want to put thoughts and words and attribute them to the Afzal family, who I never met, but a lot of people who have come to this country have come here because they value what it is that Canada is, and that is not just a country that has legal protections for free speech, but also a country that's by and large tolerant, and I get very uncomfortable when events that are incredibly rare are used to in a way that extrapolates them to speak for Canada. And that's also been what's happened, even at a local level in my community. People have said that, oh, well, no surprise this happened in London. Well, the fact that this event is so significant is proof that it's rare and proof that it doesn't speak for this country.
Of course, and it doesn't speak for all Canadians. I find it very troubling when, all Canadians are tarred with the same brush of racism, that there is systemic racism. No, there's not. I've lived here, for 30 years. My children have grown up here. And one anchor even asked me, are you afraid to walk the street? And I said, you must be joking. This is so naive and illogical to think that all Canadians are racist. There are bad, evil elements in every society. I know as a Muslim that I don't like everyone to tar the terrorist brush to all Muslims. I mean, we are very conscious of that. So we don't do that. We shouldn't be doing this. This is not all Canadians. In fact, if anything, Canadians have shown how compassionate they are, regardless of ethnicity, religion, caste, creed, color. They have come together. They have shown their solidarity. They have shown their compassion. I have received personally so many emails from people who I hadn't seen for 20 years, just saying, we are sorry that this happened in your community. And, I come back to saying that, yes, this has happened and it's terrible. It's a human tragedy. This is not because it is what happened to just people in my faith. I would do the same for anyone in Canada if this happened. And so we must remember to come together as one community, as one people, without divisiveness. And I wish our politicians would stop dividing us and them. That's not what it's about. It's all of us together in this. And we have to fight the hate.
Very well said, and I think incredible words to end on. Raheel Raza, president of the Council for Muslims Facing Tomorrow. Raheel, thank you so much for your insight and your kindness on this. I know you've always been a tremendous advocate for your community and for the country, and I think we're very grateful to have your voice on this and in general. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to The Andrew Lawton Show. Support the program by donating to True North at www.tnc.news.